like he was about to show me a spreadsheet and explain how we could finally afford a nicer couch. But then he said, "I've been thinking," and he didn't look at me when he said it. He stared at the notepad like it might protect him from what he was about to do. There was a line drawn straight down the middle. On the left, pros. On the right, cons. I blinked once, slow, because my brain refused to accept the image at full speed. "Are you making a list?" I asked. He swallowed. "I just need clarity, Sienna." Clarity. That word can be so innocent when it's about directions or job titles. But in a relationship, it's the word people use when they want permission to be cruel without looking cruel. "We've been together 4 years," Ethan continued, voice careful, measured. "And I feel like we're stuck. I need to process whether we should keep going or if we're just comfortable." Comfortable. Like stability was a couch cushion that had gone flat. My stomach dropped, but my face stayed calm, because I've always been the woman who holds her expression steady while her insides riot. It's a survival skill I learned young. I glanced down again at the notepad, at the blank columns waiting for me to be turned into tally marks. "Okay," I said softly, like I was agreeing to something reasonable. "So, talk to me. What's going on?" He finally looked up, and his eyes were already glossy, like he'd rehearsed being wounded. "I can't," he said quickly. "Not yet. I need space to do this without feeling like you're watching me decide our future." That sentence landed wrong in my body. Not because he wanted space. People need space. But because of what he was actually asking. "Go wait somewhere else while I decide if you're worth keeping." He pushed the notepad closer to himself like it was private property. "Can you just go for a drive or something?" he said. "Please, just for a bit." Charlie lifted his head, sensing the shift in tone. His tail thumped once, uncertain, like he was trying to cheer us up. I stared at Ethan's hands. They weren't shaking. His voice wasn't breaking. He looked composed. Like this wasn't an emotional conversation. Like this was an evaluation. I stood up slowly. "Take your time," I said. And the weirdest part is, he looked relieved. Like my calmness made it easier for him to do what he was doing. I walked into our bedroom with my heart acting like it was trying to claw its way out of my ribcage. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened. From the kitchen, I could hear the scratch of pen on paper. Each stroke felt like a verdict. My phone was in my hand before I realized I'd picked it up. My notes app was open. The blinking cursor waited like it already knew. And I typed one word. Leave. That was it. No paragraph, no explanation, no dramatic last line. Just the decision he'd forced me to make by turning love into a scorecard. I walked to the printer we kept on the little shelf in the bedroom, mostly for shipping labels and random forms, and printed the note like this was a normal thing to do. Like people did this every day. Print a breakup in black ink. I folded it once, then again, small enough to look harmless. Then I walked out, past the living room, and set it on the coffee table where he couldn't miss it. And then I actually left the apartment. Outside, the air was cold in that clean, sharp way that makes you feel painfully awake. My hand stayed steady on the steering wheel, but my mind wouldn't stop looping the same thought. 4 years, and he needed a list. I drove across town to my friend Marcus Lane's place. It was around 7:30 p.m. Traffic was light. The city looked normal, which made it worse, like the world hadn't gotten the memo that mine was collapsing. Marcus opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't ask a single question before handing me a beer. We sat on his balcony overlooking a parking lot that smelled faintly like asphalt and old rain. "She's making a list," I said automatically. Marcus frowned. "Who's she?" I swallowed. "Not she, he, Ethan. Pros and cons of our relationship." Marcus let out a slow breath through his nose. "Jesus, Sienna." I stared at the bottle in my hand like it was an anchor. "Yeah. What are you gonna do?" I didn't tell him right away. I didn't want to say it out loud, because saying it would make it real. "I left him a note," I said finally. Marcus tilted his head. "What did it say?" I took a long drink. The beer tasted bitter, sharp. "You'll find out," I said. He didn't push. That's why Marcus has been my friend for so long. He knows when a person is holding themselves together with thread. We stayed there for 2 hours, mostly in silence. Marcus talked about his day, his boss, some ridiculous meeting that apparently could have been an email. Normal life stuff. I heard maybe half of it. Around 9:30, I checked my phone. No texts, no calls. Nothing. Like I was already gone. "I should head back," I said, forcing the words out. Marcus's expression tightened. "You sure?" "No," I admitted. Then I stood anyway. "But I'm going." When I got back to the apartment, the lights were dim. The air felt heavy, like someone had cooked something greasy and it clung to the walls. Ethan was sitting on the couch, shoulders hunched, My note crumpled in his fist. His eyes were red and puffy. The notepad was still on the kitchen table. I could see the columns from where I stood. Pros and cons like a courtroom, like a verdict waiting to be read. He looked up at me, voice shaking. "What the hell is this?" he whispered, holding up my crumpled note like it had personally offended him. I closed the door behind me, set my keys on the counter. Calm movements, controlled breathing. "My list," I said. His mouth opened like he couldn't find the right script. "This isn't funny, Sienna." I'm not laughing. I didn't sit next to him. I pulled the chair across from the couch and sat there instead. Distance on purpose, a boundary made visible. "You asked me to leave while you decided if I was worth keeping," I said, voice level. "That told me everything I needed to know." Ethan's face crumpled. "That's not what I was doing." "It's exactly what you were doing," I replied. "You turned us into a calculation." He wiped his face with his sleeve like a teenager caught doing something pathetic. "I was trying to be rational. We have problems." "Then talk to me like a partner," I said. My voice stayed steady, but my chest burned. "Don't sit me down like I'm in a performance review and tell me to go away while you score me." He started crying harder then, the kind of crying that wants to make you feel guilty just for having boundaries. "Sienna, please," he said. "I was just confused. I've been stressed. Work has been a lot, and I needed to organize my thoughts." I stared at him for a beat. "Did you finish your list?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." My throat tightened. What did it say? His eyes flicked toward the kitchen table like the paper itself was dangerous. "It doesn't matter now," he whispered. "It matters to me." His hands trembled as he reached for the notepad. He brought it over like he was carrying evidence. "More pros than cons," he said quickly, like it was supposed to fix everything. "I was going to tell you I wanted to work on things. Maybe couples therapy, a trip, something. I wasn't trying to end it." I stared at him. "How many cons?" I asked softly. He blinked. "What? How many?" I repeated. "How many did you write down about me?" He swallowed hard, eyes dropping to the page. 8, he whispered. "And pros?" 11. I nodded once, letting it sink in. "So I won," I said quietly. "By 3 points. His face twisted. "You're being cruel." "I'm being honest," I said. "You reduced 4 years to a scorecard. I'm just responding to the game you started." I stood up. "I'm sleeping in the bedroom," I said. "You can take the couch. Or go to your sister's. I don't care which." "Sienna, wait." But I didn't wait. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. More for my own sanity than for security. Because something inside me had already shifted, and I could feel it, even in the silence. That list wasn't the beginning of the end. It was just the first time he let me see the knife. 2 days after the list night, Ethan moved out like a man trying to exit a burning building without getting soot on his shirt. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. I heard the elevator ding down the hall and knew before I opened the door who it would be, because Ethan never did anything alone when it mattered. Not apologies, not endings. His older sister, Amy Mercer, stood behind him with a clipboard, and that tight, polite expression people wear when they're trying to keep the peace but secretly judging everyone involved. There was a U-Haul double parked out front, like this was an eviction. Ethan's eyes didn't fully meet mine. He had that same damp, injured look from the couch, like he wanted me to comfort him for the pain he'd caused. "I'm just going to grab my stuff," he said. Like it was an errand, like we were returning a vacuum to Target. "Okay," I replied. That word, okay, became my shield in those days. Okay meant, I won't beg. Okay meant, I won't break in front of you. Okay meant, I'm not giving you the satisfaction of knowing how deep you cut. We split everything down the middle too. Civil, adult, clinical. He took the couch we bought at IKEA because he said it felt fair, and because I didn't have the energy to fight over fabric and memory. I kept the TV. He took the kitchen table. I kept the coffee maker, my petty little victory, because it was the one thing that was mine from before him. We even made a shared Google Doc to track who got what. It was the most humiliating thing I've ever participated in, watching 4 years turn into a checklist. But the hardest part was Charlie. Charlie stood in the hallway, tail wagging, eyes bright, excited by all the movement like this was some fun weekend activity. He didn't understand that his whole world was being split into alternating weeks. Ethan crouched and scratched behind Charlie's ears. "We agreed on switching Saturdays," he said, still not looking at me. "I'll text you next Saturday for the swap." "Fine." Amy cleared her throat, the sound of someone trying to be reasonable. "Sienna, I'm sorry," she said softly. "I really am." I nodded once. "It's okay." It wasn't. But she wasn't the enemy. She was just the witness. Ethan carried boxes out, back and forth, Like if he moved fast enough, he wouldn't have to feel anything. At the door, he paused. "I'm really sorry," he said, finally looking up. His eyes were wet again, that same helpless softness. "I know I messed up. I got scared." I didn't respond right away because I knew whatever I said would either be too kind or too cruel, and I couldn't afford to be either. So I went with the truth. "What do you want me to say, Ethan?" I asked. "That it's fine?" His mouth opened, closed. He looked smaller for a second, like a man realizing the consequences of his own choices. "It's not fine," I continued, voice steady, "but you're leaving, so it doesn't matter anymore." He flinched like I'd slapped him. Then he nodded, stepped into the hallway, and was gone. When the elevator doors swallowed him, the apartment felt like it exhaled, quiet and hollow. I sat on the floor in the empty living room, back against the wall, knees pulled to my chest. Charlie came over and rested his head in my lap like he was trying to keep me together with the weight of his trust. I stayed like that for a long time, long enough for my phone to buzz with texts from friends that said things like, "How are you holding up? And let me know if you need anything." Long enough to realize I didn't know how to answer any of it. Because the truth was, I wasn't devastated in the dramatic way people expect. I wasn't sobbing into wine. I was numb, like I'd been unplugged. And that numbness almost convinced me the worst was over. Almost. 5 days later, on Wednesday evening, I was making pasta. Nothing fancy, just something warm because I kept forgetting to eat. I just stirred in the sauce when my phone rang. Marcus. The second I heard his voice, my body tightened. Because Marcus didn't call unless it mattered. "Hey," he said. "What's wrong?" I asked, wooden spoon suspended over the pan. He exhaled. "Okay, so don't freak out." My stomach sank like it recognized the shape of the truth before my brain did. "Marcus, I need to tell you something," he said, voice low. "My buddy Derek was at Murphy's bar last night." Murphy's was one of those places with sticky tables and cheap beer and regulars who looked like they'd been born sitting on a bar stool. Ethan used to go there sometimes after work. I never liked it. Too loud. Too familiar. Like secrets lived in the corners. "What about it?" I asked, even though my chest already knew. Derek kept talking, and Marcus relayed it like a messenger who hated his own job. He saw Ethan there with a woman. Not just talking, Sienna, like holding hands, kissing at the bar, like they were the only two people in the world. My grip tightened around the spoon. The sauce bubbled aggressively, like it was annoyed I was letting it burn. "Who?" I managed. Marcus hesitated. He didn't know her name at first. My throat went dry. "But the bartender did," Marcus continued. "Derek said the bartender knew them. Said they'd been coming in for weeks." Weeks. My breathing got shallow. Because Ethan had been thinking for weeks too. And then Marcus said the part that made my knees go weak. And Sienna. Derek said it looked like they weren't new. I turned off the stove. My hand moved automatically, like my body was taking over because my mind was busy falling apart. "Marcus," I whispered, "send me whatever you have." "I already asked," he said quickly. "Derek took a photo. He's sending it to me right now." My phone buzzed a second later. A text. An image. I opened it. And there she was. Ethan. Laughing. His hand on a woman's lower back. Possessive, familiar, the way men touch women when they think they've already claimed them. She was tall, dark hair, a sharp profile. And she was leaning into him like she belonged there. Like I didn't exist. The worst part wasn't the kiss. It was the ease. The comfort. The way their bodies angled toward each other like they'd practiced being a couple. Then my eyes caught the timestamp in the corner of the photo. 10:47 p.m. And the date was 2 weeks before the night he sat me down with that notepad. 2 weeks before I need clarity. 2 weeks before he asked me to leave the room. I felt cold all over, like someone had poured ice water directly into my bloodstream. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just hit call. Ethan answered on the third ring. "Sienna?" he said cautiously, like he'd already guessed why I was calling. "What's her name?" I asked. Silence. I could hear traffic behind him. He was outside somewhere, walking, avoiding. "Ethan," I said, voice low. "What is her name?" "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, too fast. I laughed. One sharp sound that didn't match my face. "Don't," I warned. "Don't insult me." More silence. Then I said, "I have a photo." And something shifted on the other end of the line. His breath caught. He didn't deny it again. He just went quiet like a man waiting for judgment. "Who is she?" I demanded. Another long pause. Then, finally, he whispered, "Riley." My skin prickled. "Riley who?" "Riley Castellano." The name hit me in a way that felt specific. Not random. Not stranger from a bar. Because I'd heard that last name before. Maybe not in conversation with Ethan, but at his company holiday party 2 years ago, when he introduced me to people with practiced charm. I remembered a woman who shook my hand a little too firmly and smiled a little too confidently. A woman who looked Ethan up and down like she was evaluating him. I remembered thinking, she's dangerous. I just hadn't realized dangerous meant patient. How long? I asked. It's not what you think, he blurted out. My voice didn't rise. That was the terrifying part. How long? He exhaled like he was losing the fight he didn't want to have. 2 months, he admitted. But we haven't, Sienna, we haven't. Haven't what? I cut in. Haven't slept together? Haven't crossed the line? We've just been talking, he insisted, words tumbling out. Getting coffee. She was helping me figure out my feelings about us, about our future. I stared at the wall in front of me, and everything inside me started to rearrange itself. So the list wasn't the beginning. It was the cover story. The rational way to break it to me. The clean, calculated exit so he could pretend he wasn't already halfway gone. You made your little list, I said softly, while you already had someone waiting in the wings. No, he said quickly. It wasn't like that. It got confusing. I didn't know what to do. My laugh came out again, bitter this time. You didn't know what to do? I repeated. Ethan, you asked me to leave my own home so you could decide between me and your backup plan. She's not, he started. She is, I snapped, finally letting the heat show. That's exactly what she is. His voice went quiet, suddenly sharp with defensiveness. Don't call her that. And there it was. Not guilt. Not remorse. Loyalty. For her. Something hot and ugly rose in my throat. I swallowed it down. Because if I screamed, he'd tell everyone I was emotional, that I overreacted, that he tried to be rational. So instead, I spoke like a judge. Don't contact me again, I said. Not unless it's about Charlie. And even then, text only. Sienna. I didn't let him finish. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the phone down on the counter before I dropped it. The kitchen smelled like burned sauce. The pasta was ruined, stuck to the bottom of the pan like a punishment. Charlie whined softly from his bed in the corner, lifting his head like he could sense my heartbeat changing. I walked over and sank to the floor beside him, pressing my forehead to his fur. Yeah, buddy, I whispered. I know. Because the numbness was gone now. In its place was something sharper, clearer. A realization that made my spine straighten even as my eyes burned. Ethan didn't just break my heart. He staged it. And the woman in that photo wasn't new. She was a plan. And if Ethan thought he was going to walk away clean, if he thought I'd quietly accept being evaluated, replaced, and dismissed, he didn't know me as well as he thought he did. I didn't sleep that night. Not in the dramatic, tossing and turning way people imagine after heartbreak, but in the quiet, hyper-aware way where your body is exhausted and your mind refuses to shut down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw columns. Pros, cons. Every memory I replayed suddenly felt annotated. Like Ethan had been mentally scoring me for months while smiling across the dinner table. By Friday morning, the shock had burned off. What was left was clarity. And clarity is dangerous when paired with facts. Ethan worked at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown called Northline Collective. About 30 employees. Small enough that everyone knew everyone. Small enough that secrets didn't stay buried. I'd been to their holiday parties, their summer rooftop barbecue. I'd shaken hands with his coworkers, laughed at inside jokes, listened to his boss talk about company culture and professional boundaries like they were sacred laws. I remembered one conversation in particular. His boss, Patricia Huang, had been holding a glass of red wine and said to me casually, "Workplace relationships are messy. I don't ban them, but I don't tolerate power imbalances. That's my line." At the time, I'd nodded politely. Now that memory felt relevant, because Riley Castellano wasn't just some woman he met at a bar. She was his direct supervisor. I didn't act on it immediately. I sat with the knowledge for a full day. Let it settle. Let myself ask the uncomfortable question. Am I doing this because it's right, or because I want to hurt him back? The answer was both. And pretending it was only one would have been another kind of lie. Friday morning, 8:17 a.m., I opened my laptop before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't write a dramatic email. No accusations, no emotional language, no threats. Just facts. Hi, Patricia. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to inform you that Ethan and I have ended our relationship. I recently learned he'd been involved with Riley Castellano while we were still together. I understand workplace relationships can happen, but given that Riley is his direct supervisor, I thought you should be aware in case there are any policy considerations. Best Sienna. I read it 3 times. Removed an adjective. Changed a verb. Made sure it sounded like someone who wasn't shaking while typing. Then I hit send. The moment the email left my outbox, my heart started pounding. Not with fear, with inevitability. Because once facts are introduced into a system that runs on optics, something has to happen. 2 days passed. Nothing. No response, no explosion, no message from Ethan. For a brief, foolish moment, I wondered if it had gone into a void. Then my phone rang Sunday afternoon while I was in the hardware store buying light bulbs. Because life loves irony. Ethan's name lit up the screen. I stepped outside before answering. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped. The second I said hello, I leaned against my car, staring at a crack in the pavement like it deserved my full attention. "Hello to you too," I said calmly. "You got Riley in trouble," he continued, voice tight with fury. "HR is investigating both of us. Do you have any idea what you did?" "I stated facts," I replied. "If facts cause problems, that's not on me." "You went behind my back," he shouted. I laughed softly. "Behind your back? You were behind my back for 2 months. There was a pause. I could practically hear him grinding his teeth. "This could affect my career," he said, suddenly switching tactics. "Patricia pulled me into her office and grilled me for over an hour. It was humiliating." I pictured him sitting there, hands folded, trying to look wounded and reasonable. "Should have thought about that," I said, "before you used our relationship as a waiting room while you auditioned your boss." "You're being vindictive," he accused. "I'm being accurate," I corrected, "something you avoided for weeks." There it was again, my refusal to play the emotional role he expected. He wanted anger, tears, guilt. I gave him composure. He hung up on me. I found out the rest through Marcus, who heard it from Derek, who apparently knew someone in HR, because this city has exactly 3 degrees of separation on a good day. Riley was transferred back to the Chicago office within a week. Ethan received a formal written warning that went into his permanent file. No one was fired, but everyone knew. And in a company that small, that kind of knowledge sticks to you. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt still. A small part of me felt guilty. A flicker, brief. Then I remembered the timestamp on the photo. The list. The way he told me not to call Riley that. And the guilt disappeared. 3 weeks later, when I thought the fallout was done, my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't expected. Amy Mercer. Ethan's sister. Her message was short. "Hey, Sienna. I know this is awkward, but could we meet for coffee? I want to talk to you about something important." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, "Okay." We met on a Tuesday morning at a Starbucks near my office. I came in late to work for the first time in years and didn't feel bad about it at all. Amy was already there, sitting in the corner with 2 coffees in front of her, like she'd rehearsed the meeting. "I got you black," she said nervously. "That's still how you take it, right?" "Yeah," I replied. "Thanks." She didn't smile. She looked scared, like someone about to confess something they didn't fully agree with but felt obligated to deliver. "Ethan doesn't know I'm here," she said quietly. I nodded. "Okay." She took a breath, fingers tightening around her cup. "I think you should know some things," she continued. "Things he probably won't tell you." I waited. "He's been having panic attacks," she said. "Like, full on. Can't breathe. Shaking. Since everything blew up." I felt a tug of something in my chest. Not pity. Recognition. Because fear always shows up eventually, even for the people who try to outsource it. "He told me—" Amy hesitated, eyes flicking up to meet mine. "He told me he sabotaged your relationship on purpose." The cafe noise faded into a low hum. "What?" I asked softly. "He's terrified of commitment," she explained, "of being all in. And instead of admitting that, he created chaos." My jaw tightened. "The list," she continued, "it was a test." I stared at her. "A test?" "He wanted to see if you'd fight for him," she said quietly. "If you'd beg him to stay. He thought if you really loved him, you'd prove it by not letting him go." The words landed like a slap. "So Riley," I asked. Amy swallowed. "An exit strategy. Someone to distract himself with. Someone he could blame later if things went wrong." I looked down at my coffee, watching the steam curl upward. "That's twisted," I said. "I know," she whispered. "I told him that. I told him he needs therapy. That what he did was manipulative and cruel, but he's my brother, and he's falling apart." She looked up at me then, eyes glossy. "And I thought maybe if you two talked—" "No," I said immediately. Not angry, not raised. Just final. "He played games with me for months," I continued. "He cheated emotionally, at the very least. He made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was being evaluated." Amy's shoulders slumped. "He really loved you," she said. "He still does." "He had a funny way of showing it," I replied. We sat there in uncomfortable silence after that. Amy nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she said. I just had to try. I get it, I told her. You're being a good sister. We hugged before leaving. She told me to take care of myself. I never heard from her again. And honestly, that felt right. 3 months passed. Not quickly, not cleanly, but steadily, like a bruise fading in stages you only notice when you stop checking every morning. I kept the apartment. At first, it felt cavernous, like every empty space was shaped exactly like Ethan. The missing shoes by the door, the absence of his jacket slung over the chair, the way the silence pressed in at night. So I rearranged everything. Not dramatically, no burning sage, no ceremonial rebirth, but deliberately. I moved the couch so it faced the window instead of the TV. Bought a new one eventually, leather, comfortable, mine. I swapped out the art we picked together for pieces I'd always liked but never bought because he thought they were too much. Turns out too much was just another word for not centered on him. Charlie adjusted faster than I did. After 2 months of alternating weekends, Ethan sent a text at 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. Ryan's building doesn't allow big dogs. I can't keep Charlie. Can you take him permanently? I'm sorry. Ryan. The name still made something in my jaw tighten. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I locked my phone and went back to what I was doing. I didn't reply. I just kept Charlie. He sleeps on my feet now when I work from home. Heavy, warm, unbothered by the emotional complexity of adult relationships. Sometimes he groans in his sleep and shifts his weight like he's reminding me that presence doesn't need justification. That text was the last time Ethan reached out. I heard through Marcus, because of course I did, that Ethan moved to Chicago to be with Riley, that they made it official. Facebook photos, smiling captions, the illusion of certainty. I didn't look. I didn't need to. Because once you've seen the mechanics behind someone's affection, the display loses its magic. My mom started asking if I was dating again around the 6-week mark. Sunday dinners turned into interrogations. There's a nice man at my yoga class, she said one night, passing me the salad. Very polite. Stable job. I smiled, changed the subject. I downloaded 2 dating apps, deleted them both within 20 minutes. The idea of small talk, first dates, the quiet fear that someone across from me might already be tallying my value in their head. Pros, kind, reliable. Cons, doesn't push me enough. It made my chest tighten. Marcus suggested therapy. You've got trust damage now, he said, not unkindly. That's not something you just shake off. Maybe he's right. I don't know. What I do know is this. I wasted 4 years on someone who needed to measure love instead of practicing it, on someone who turned vulnerability into a test and commitment into a threat, on someone who asked me to leave the room not because he needed clarity, but because he wanted control. He wanted me to fight, to beg, to prove my worth. Instead, I walked away. Sometimes, usually late at night, when Charlie's breathing evens out and the apartment feels too quiet, I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed. If I'd sat there and watched him write those lists. If I'd pleaded my case. If I'd let him believe love was something you earn through performance. But then Charlie shifts, presses his weight against my ankles, and sighs like he's settling into certainty. And I remember, I already made my list. It never needed revisions. It never needed columns. It only needed one word. Leave.